Hello, thanks for tuning in and welcome to the pool party. I hope you can swim because we're definitely diving into the deep end with a huge splash of truth, facts, evidence, information, and proof. Swim. Say what you mean. It's talk about talking. How we listen, how we hear, how we speak, how we hear what we're listening to when we speak, how a listener hears what we're saying, if what we're saying, what they're actually hearing and or understanding. Is it clear? Swim. Say what you mean. Well, that's just the beginning of understanding, because after we get that understanding, how do we accept it? How we respond if it's not what we expect is paramount. Are you okay with the truth? Are you man, woman, human, or spiritual enough to accept the truth? Let's find out. Welcome to the Swimming Pool with your host, Travis Bridges. Host Travis Bridges.
Well, guess who that is? Let's see if I can let you look at who. Oh, wrong camera. Oops. I've got to change it. This is my side view. Which view is it? Is it this one? Yeah. Okay. Here I am back to the front. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Swimming Pool. Swimming Pool, SWYM. That is the acronym for Say What You Mean. I think I did that last week, too, when I came on, and I had the wrong camera on. It's kind of sort of on purpose, but not really. But anyway, I don't think I'm going to do it next week because I didn't fix the problem from last week. Anyway, how you been, friend? Welcome back to the Win-Win-Win Wednesday night broadcast. It's hump day. That means if you get through the night, you've got 2 more days before the weekend, baby. Most people get excited about the weekend. I don't guess I do, because I kind of do the same thing every day, whether it's the weekend or not. My job is kind of week in and a week out. And in the words of Steve Harvey, got a good one for you, man. I tell you, I remember when I first started doing these live streams, I would wait till the end of my COVID concert series, and then I'd come on and I would talk. But then that kind of gave me the idea of what you gonna do, man. You know, why don't you talk a little bit more? And I started doing it, and I started doing all kinds of stuff, and now I can see growth, man. And tonight you'll definitely see I've learned some new things, and the live stream tonight is real interesting. And guess what? I've got something at the end of my live stream that ain't nothing to be messed up with. When I say that, it's what I'm gonna call the special. And I guess you're wondering, what's this dude sitting up there with that hat on for? Well, this is my son's plebe summer hat. This is the hat that he wore at graduation also, when he graduated from the Naval Academy in 2014. And I went out to the shed to grab my grab those speakers I was connecting up there today for the other side of the Hollywood home studio. And I saw the hat. I'm like, I'm gonna rock it tonight, because although I've had a rough week, and as the old saints used to say, thank God I don't look like what I've been through. I was like, okay, let me just put on my battle fatigues and my gentleman's hat, because you can do battle and still be a gentleman, the word on the street. So I'm gonna take that. Anyway, I've got a guest standing by, and I've got 2 canned guests that are gonna come up. They're gonna come back to back. And they're going to be good. We're talking about, what are we talking about? I wrote it over here. Oh, the bride's endorphins and dopamine. And what is that for men? You know, when a woman gets married, that moment of walking down the aisle, being a bride on her wedding day, it's like, you know, a massive rush of dopamine based on the women that I've known and that I've interviewed, and that, you know, just from what I hear, it's a high that, you know, you just don't get from just, you know, going to the grocery store every day. And that happens for women, but what is that equivalent to for men? I've got 2 guests that are coming up, and we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about conflict resolution. You ever have any conflict with anybody, anything, for any reason? Want to know how to solve it? Well, I do too. I think I found a way, and I'm going to share it with you. But I also have a guest that's already standing by, and I'm going to go to that guest. And after I finish with that guest, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to come back with my other two guests. But do me a favor. Promise me you're going to do this. Whenever I end the broadcast, I want you to stay tuned, because I found something really exciting this week when I was digging through, as the DJs used to say, was digging through the crates. I found something interesting. I found a song that I recorded when I was going to do my first CD project that never made it. You know how you find those unreleased projects? I found one. I'm going to share it with you. I also found something else, and I found something else. So I'm letting you know 1/3 of the 3 things that I'm going to present at the end of the broadcast. So do me a favor. It's going to bless you. I used to hear preachers say that in church and be like, yeah, all right. Well, now I see what they mean. It's going to bless you. So wait till the end, okay? What I'm going to do right now is go to my caller, and we're going to talk. Caller, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hey. How you been?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
Let me take my hat off now. Anyway, so I got you on. I have 2 guests already, and we're going to have to be very short because I'm going to have to get to those, and I'm going to be over. I see myself being about maybe 7 or 10 minutes over. That's not going to hurt, especially with the special that I'm going to do at the end. But I wanted to bring you on because in your field and as the world, we're celebrating Mental Health Month. And I want to let you give your spiel on mental health. Of course, we have a couple of more weeks left in the month. We can do something like a whole night on it, or at least talk about it again. But before I get into the bride's endorphins and dopamine for the man and conflict resolution and my special, why don't you share with me and my audience what's up with Mental Health Month?
Well, thank you for having me on and giving me this opportunity. Yes, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think you know, as probably your audience know, that it is a big taboo. It's a taboo among genders and in society, but specifically with men. And one of the things that is very close and dear to my heart is male suicide. The statistics say that males are 4 times more likely to commit suicide. And that has to do with a lot of different things, dealing with the social pressures that we put on the gender, being a man, being the provider, being the rock of a house. And then we get into situations like the pandemic. We get into situations such as illnesses or even the loss of a job. And that tends to exacerbate the situation. You were talking about your son and serving and graduating from military school, and even that, when they come back from the war, what are the expectations and how are we in society helping the male deal with emotions, frustrations, and creating an outlet for, when their mind is being impacted by either trauma or social issues. So that's one of my biggest things. I mean, I appreciate what you do, and I know you got a lot of people that watch this show, listen to this show afterwards. I think it's important for us to remember that it's not just during the month of May. We have, throughout the entire year, we have to be aware. We have to pay attention. We have to check in on our strong friends and make sure that we allow them to have an outlet for those negative and toxic emotions. A lot of people talk about toxic masculinity, but we don't talk about healthy masculinity or healthy mind masculinity, and what are we doing as a society to help our men counterpart, just kind of have that healthy mindset, and for us to become supporters of creating a better mindset for males and their mental health.
Awesome. I think we're definitely going to have to do more, because it's we're still kind of in the middle first part of the month, and we still have a couple more Wednesdays, I think. And if you don't mind coming back on, I think I'll do a little more on Mental Health Month. But as you were just saying, let's observe it. Let's check in on not only those that may be actually struggling when it's obvious. Check on the strong, because the strong are the ones who do need it the most. So as we move on, we are keeping and being aware that it is Mental Health Month for the month of May, and that we are going to be observant of that as we continue to help our brethren and sisterin. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your call. As I said before, I have 2 more guests that are coming up. I hope you're going to stick around and listen. And at the end of my live stream, I've got the cutest thing you're ever going to hear. So if you stick around, I'd really appreciate it. Okay.
Looking forward to it. I will.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the commercial that is going to fuel the subjects that I'm going to talk about. So do me a favor. Hold the spot you got. I'll be right back. Thank you. Have a good night. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Stay focused. Not everyone will like you, support you,
Not
or wish you well.
like you,
But there are so many more that will love and appreciate you as you continue to move forward. As you continue. In fact, many people don't even have eyes to see you or ears to hear you. They're not even on the same frequency. So, don't always think they're hating on you. I am convinced that for every one that can't and won't see you, there are 100 more that can and will. You have purpose. Don't quit. Keep moving up. Step out and be bold. Your day is soon to come, and your testimony will be motivation for others. I believe. Stay focused. Mighty Horn Music. Smooth jazz, top 40, R&B, inspirationals, and more. Live from the Hollywood Home Studio. Like, share, subscribe. And thanks for tuning in.
Yo.
Hey man, how you doing?
All right.
All right. You in a good place?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. So let's get right into it. Maybe we can save some time today and get a whole lot more out of talking instead of just, warming up to each other. I'm sure you've been good. We kind of been talking off record for a little bit, but I'm coming at you with something totally different today. We can get into something else if you want, but you remember, the video I sent you about stay focused, right?
Yeah.
There's a kind of sort of subliminal message in there. There's several, but the one message in that, there's a part in the presentation where there's a bride that's walking down the aisle, and I use that to send a message that for most women, that moment is the greatest day of their lives, and it is the day that they prepare for all of their lives. It's definitely a day that their mother, wants to see, father definitely hopes to see, and the day that they prepare for. It's the day that she gets the most single attention. Would you at least agree with that?
Yeah.
When she stands at that door before it opens and the music starts to play and she starts heading down the aisle for that moment, everyone stands up and she's been in prep for a few days. She's had a bachelorette party like the night, a couple of days before. All of her friends and family are there, and there she is coming down the aisle. That is definitely, the message in that. And I'll talk about that video on another day, because I want to feature that specially. I premiered it, on tonight's broadcast, but someone asked me about that subliminal message that I was sending in that particular demonstration. And as I was explaining, that being the biggest day for a woman and the biggest moment for a woman, the person asked me, well, what would be compatible for a man, in that same sense? What would that be equivalent to for a man? And I had my answer, but I want you to think about it yourself, and I want to discuss your answer before I give my answer. So based on you knowing what it means to a woman who is a bride on her wedding day, what is equivalent for a man?
The closest thing I can think of is when he gets married too.
Really?
Yeah, nothing else is coming to mind.
Okay. So, okay. Can you say that again?
Yeah, maybe having a child or something like that.
Well, maybe that's what I need to do. I want to give you a few minutes, and I want you to think about it, because you said nothing comes to mind, and I don't want you to think about this with a process of elimination. It is definitely a big thing, because, as a man, we can't imagine how women feel directly. Indirectly, we can kind of sort of speculate, but we don't know. So as it relates to a man, I want to give you some time. I want you to think about it. And I guess the easiest way would be to think about how it would apply for yourself. And this is a yes or no question. If and when you got married, was that the biggest moment of your life? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well then you don't have to think about it, because if it's the biggest day for you, then I'll leave it right there. And I appreciate you being, truthful. Have you thought of anything else since you've been thinking, or is that your last and final answer?
The only thing else that's been in that type of deal for me, I think, is having children.
Mm-hmm.
And getting married. That was something different for me, and I don't know if anything else is compared to that. I'm thinking, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's going to be tough to come from that, because I guess maybe that should be for all men, and then maybe it's not for all women. That's why I don't use all, and that's why I clearly said most. And I'm just going to go on record saying I don't think that is the biggest moment for most men. But I'll tell you what I think it is, and I'll tell you the reason I did it was because of what I know about most men that I know, that I've had the opportunity to interact with, to chat with, like you and me. And then after I give you my perspective, I want you to tell me if it changes at all. You have to promise. Okay. You have to promise to be honest.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because there's no wrong here. I thought about it, and I was put on the spot just like you, but I did my process really fast, and I really did come up with what I actually am sticking to. And maybe I could go back to that moment and see if it was the same. It was a very powerful moment for me, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't equivalent to the what is the word I'm looking for the that goes through a mind, body, and soul. So I'll tell you, for me, it has been and still will be the days that I have looked in the mirror on particular days that I have overcome some massive obstacles. And when we can stand in a mirror of our lives and know that we are self-sufficient, we can care for ourselves, our family, our loved ones, and know that at least we are being productive in that. I think that same kind of euphoria or endorphins, I hope I'm using the right word, that's what really gets into me as a man and most men when we can be productive and efficient and I want to say independent, but that wouldn't be in that order. Definitely productive. That's what I think really gets it for us. Can you relate?
Yeah, I do see what you mean. Because when you're a man and you grow up and you get to the point where you can take care of your family and really take care of them, you feel like you're being a man in a different way. Then you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Of course.
That's what you're talking about, right? And so yeah, that is something different for me. But I also too think that's the only thing that does for me is the pride. It does make me a better person, and it makes me. When it happened with me, I started looking down on people, and
when what happened to you? When what happened to you?
When I got to the position financially where I could be, where I could, I guess, where I'm in the more upper class of society,
So I want to be careful here. I know what you're saying, but I kind of want to stay on track a little bit. I don't think I used the word finances. It was included in that. And I see why you're saying what you're saying, and I get it. And you were talking about, you having a certain level of pride and you begin to look down on people. I really want you to expound on that. But I'm talking about mostly being productive, because you cannot have money but still feel productive, feel useful, feel appreciated, feel respected and honored, as an individual, not even as a husband or an employee or even an employer, even self-employed. So, yeah, I can see how you can say that, because money is, from what I understand, the root of all evil, and it would cause you to have a certain type of attitude and make you look down on people. And that's why, it's not a good thing to do that. And maybe that's why you're going to tell that in the rest of your statement. And I do want you to finish your thought. But I'm not necessarily talking about just reaching a financial level, because financial levels rise and fall all the time. And if you look down on people when you're up, you can almost expect when you're down that, you're going to automatically be looking up at someone else. So I don't know if I got off track, and if what you're saying is the same thing as being productive.
Productive. What do you mean by productive?
Being efficient. When I say productive, what I mean is sufficient. When a man can serve other people, when he's being productive in, being wanted, needed, cared for, loved, respected, honored, and cherished. Because people, I guess, can have money and be financially fit and then not have those things. When I say productive, I'm talking about those areas of being efficient, effective, for I guess his own, or I'm going to say my own expectations, because I've had, kind of roller coaster with that way financially and as well as from a efficient perspective. But looking in the mirror, for that time that I have that feeling, it's equivalent to what I would imagine a bride would feel on her wedding day as a man to me. So did I answer your question as in terms of productive as it relates to the difference in just financially?
Yeah, I think, I do think I get it. The difference for me is that I think that me being in that position is more of a product of luck than something that I did. And when, I had to get knocked down to get to that position, because when I, like you said, looked in the mirror and getting all this approval, being productive, doing this, doing that, doing this and doing that. And that didn't do it for me. I didn't feel like that.
Okay. So have you ever felt, or do you feel now, or do you look forward to the day where you can look into the mirror of your soul and see that you are efficient, productive, effective, respected, honored, cherished, loved, appreciated, and productive?
Pretty much. I feel like that now, pretty much, for the most part. I don't really feel like that because I'm still struggling and trying. But, yeah, I definitely feel like that. I got to live, with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And myself is saying, I'm doing what, I'm living up to my own standards.
Okay. So in a nutshell, when you look into the mirror, the physical mirror in the bathroom or behind the wall or whatnot, and the mirror of your soul, would you say you are 100% and completely satisfied with what you see and feel?
Not 100, no.
Okay. What percentage, just for the record?
I'd say 75.
Okay, that's a good number. Okay, I want to get off that subject and move on to something else. I'm hoping to have another guest, and we're going to talk about the same thing. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that. I think I made somewhat of a point based on, my perspective, my speculation. I'm just, I'm glad you were able to share that with me. And then even for me to see the difference in being financially stable at one point, as opposed to just being generally productive and efficient. So thank you. Unless you have something else to say, I want to use the rest of the time to go on to something different slightly.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. I think I want to take this time to, I guess, make a point about where I stand as it relates to my live streams. My commercials and my promo, when they come on, they talk about, my live stream being talk about talking, listening, hearing, paying attention, analyzing what you hear, what you see, discovering new information. And once you get that information, then being okay in how you respond to what it is you discover after a complete and thorough investigation. It's something that I've experienced even from childhood, wanting and feeling like I needed closure on a full understanding of things that I encountered. So I don't find it to be a mistake that even as an adult, I'm finding to seek, a type of, approval or maybe even acceptance in some ways, from interactions, particularly with other people. But what I want to do is I want to talk about, the ways of reaching that, and I want your input on it. I have something that I go by called universal principles, points of reference, and law. Do you need me to explain those before I go on? Can you understand when I say I run everything through the filters of universal principles, points of reference, and law? Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts in terms of being able to emotionally, psychologically, and even conversationally, run anything through those points? And do you think those are good points to run anything by, especially if there's any kind of conflict? Because that's when it matters most. If everything is going good, you don't need conflict resolution. It's when you are in a jam, even yourself, whether it's somebody else or when you're even in your mind, you have to process things in order to bring about peace from within. So I want your thoughts on those filters as a suggestion of how to reach resolution in conflict situations.
Well, I will have to have an example and see how the filters work, and then otherwise I'm just can only speak on what I'm imagining it to be.
I get that. That's a good answer, and I appreciate it. So maybe we can break it down a little bit. Universal principles. Let me just give my understanding and definition of what I perceive that to be. That is a circumstance or a situation, and you can pick anyone, of something that is set, has been set, and will likely be set, throughout our generation, through our lifetime. It's a universal principle. Nobody can change it. Nobody created it. For example, here's your example of a universal principle. Winter, summer, spring, or fall. They've been coming behind each other for as long as I know. I can't switch spring for fall. I've got to wait till after spring and then go through the summer to get to the fall. And states or regions that have, 4 seasons, they are well aware of that. So I don't care what they do. I don't care if they plan a picnic in January up in Niagara Falls. It's probably going to be cold, more than likely. So that's what I mean by a universal principle. A point of reference. Do you understand that? You get that? And I'm not asking you, do you understand, as if you can't reason. I just want to make sure that you understand. Yeah. That is, then when you ask for an example, that's the filter that I'm talking about. So moving on from a universal principle, it's set, it's grounded. Nobody can really do anything about it. Okay? A point of reference would be something that has been established amongst society. In South Florida, where I live, we call it I forgot what it's called, a South Florida tuxedo or something. It's like, our dress codes are different. For us to put on a pair of shorts and some flip-flops and just be walking around, or something really light, it's acceptable. But, if you're up north somewhere and you're not wearing pantyhose, for women who knows what I'm talking about, it may be inappropriate. There's certain things that have been established in certain communities, in certain neighborhoods, in certain families, in certain regions, that has just been established as a point of reference. Is just what is a reasonable expectation, not necessarily a universal principle, but a reasonable expectation of what you can expect if you do this, that, or the other. Yeah. So you follow me? And a law. You got me on that? You have any questions? Because I really want to give you these examples. It's just, a reasonable expectation of what's already been established as considered, a reasonable expectation. And thirdly, would be the law. The law is something that has been set, that whether it's a universal principle or not, whether it's a point of reference or not, it is the law. And of course, we all have to abide by certain laws based on where we are. So running every conflict through those filters is how I believe that we can reach resolution when we have conflict. Any questions at all? Because I would like to now know if you think those are good, bad, or ugly filters to run conflict through if you're interacting with somebody. Me and you, we're talking. If we have a problem, we need to talk about what your side is. Is it universal principle? Is it a point of reference? Is it law? And then just try to discuss it from that, perspective. Is it reasonable to use those filters?
It seems reasonable, but it seems like if you're gonna, have a, conversation, a debate, or whatever.
Conflict. I want to use the word conflict.
conflict. If you have a conflict, you need a point of reference of something you both can agree on.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and that is true. That's why conflict arises, because people don't agree. So I hear what you're saying, but I want to go beyond. That's what a conflict is, when people don't agree. So what I'm saying is when two people don't, because if two people are agreeing, then you don't need a resolution. Everybody's getting along fine.
No, but that's the point of it. When two people are having a disagreement, first you need to find out what they're disagreeing on.
That's true.
And the first thing you need to find out is what they're talking about. Because a lot of times, most of the time, they're not talking about the same thing.
Exactly.
And that's what I talk about with Christianity. That's why there's so many different versions of Christianity, but you should be able to talk about it where everybody will agree with each other. But they won't.
Okay, I know that's gonna be. We're gonna have to definitely do another show for religion. I promise you, I'll remember to talk about that. I'm just talking about daily conflict resolution, as it relates to people. Like I said, it could be even within yourself, and I'm talking about reaching a resolve when there's conflict, because when two people don't agree and they need to come together and reason. If I could quote one of my favorite books that said, let's reason together. Two people or more people need to find a place to reason. That's why when I talk about being okay with what you discover when you either use those filters or whatever filters, I don't know if you think those are good filters or not. I think they are a good place to start, because there are some things that just can't be changed. There are some things that are just reasonably a reasonable expectation. And then there are some things that are just law. When you put those three things together and you have a discussion, I think, you should be able to come up with a, basic resolution to basic conflict. And when I say basic, of course, it's subjective. But when you just said, you need to find out something that two people agree on, that's when you use those filters to reach an agreement. And as I said, sometimes, you can use those filters. You can have the conversation until someone's blue in the face. Then that's when you get to that point where someone may not be okay with accepting. And that's why, my promo and my intro to my live stream talks about what happens, when you find out the truth. Can you handle it? Are you man enough, woman enough, human enough to accept, maybe I won't even call it the truth, whatever you discover through those filters. Am I making any sense at all? It's okay to say no, because that's why we're talking.
It does, but it's kind of like the subject can be narrowed down more than that, is what I'm thinking. Because, for example, if two people arguing about COVID, first, what's a virus? Get them to, do they both know what a virus is? I doubt it, and those are the things that I see in conflict. And when you talk about the universal principle and, a point of reference is what a virus is. That would be the point of reference, is what I'm thinking. So, whenever there's a conflict, find the point of reference, find out define the problem, and define what it is.
Okay, I'm going to give you the next 6 minutes to give me an example of what you just said.
Someone saying that they tested positive for COVID, and somebody say, well, there's no such thing as how is it such thing as a COVID test? And they say, well, it's a PCR test. Well, what's a PCR test? Well, they don't know what a PCR test is. Well, there you go. You just got the conflict, just got resolved. Now, when they find out what a PCR test is, they'll go both be in agreement that a PCR, no way to tell if you even have a virus from a PCR test. They're both going to be on agreement with that. There won't be no more argument or debate.
Well, I said I was going to let your example be the last, thing, and I'm going to stick to my word, because I can't say I got what you mean, but I heard it, and I will definitely process it at another time, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on from that. And as always, I appreciate you. I love you. I respect everything you have to say. And I'm glad we were able to at least get through another one of my live streams. So you have to give me a promise that you'll come back at another time. Maybe we can talk about religion. That'll be definitely a good one. I'll take the next day off when we talk about that.
All right.
And I'm not even a drinker, but I might even have a drink on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would need rest after that conversation. But anyway, man, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk again super fantastically soon.
All right, you take care, my brother.
Okay, 10-4.
Mighty Horn Music. Smooth jazz, top 40, R&B, inspirationals, and more. Live from the Hollywood Home Studio. Like, share, subscribe. And thanks for tuning in.
Hello.
Hey, man.
Okay, we're
Okay.
on.
Yes, we're on. If this was back in the day, I would be saying we're live on the radio, but technology has made it so that we can't say that. We are now live on the internet. How about that for a modified technology?
Yeah, we could modify it to say now we are alive.
Exactly.
Alive.
Now, with that being said, I promise I'm going to keep you inside the time that I said I was going to go. And I want to give you a little bit about what my live stream is about. It's just simply talk about talking. I don't mention names. I don't mention locations. I don't mention titles or brands or anything like that. Anybody listening to my live stream will not know who my guest is on purpose unless they slip up and say their name. And sometimes if they do anything like that, I try to edit that out. It's pretty much just talk about talking. The topic can be anything, and what I do is I listen for clarity. I listen to what someone is saying. I try to differentiate from what they're saying, what they're meaning, and what I'm processing, as well as what they think I'm saying. So it always ends up being interesting, even if it's boring, because you get to hear different sides of how each one of us process. Just so happen this time I have two subjects that I'm going to stay within our time. And I produced this week like a promo for my live stream, and it was simply entitled Stay Focused. And if I had done my homework, I would have let you I see it. So I'm gonna tell you it's talking about staying focused. And one of the features inside of that presentation is a woman walking down the aisle in her wedding dress as her family and friends are clapping, and her groom, her husband to be, is waiting for her, and she's walking, and it's talking about staying focused, going through trying times and reaching that moment. I put that image in there to send the message that for a woman in particular, if you make it through any of your tough times, that is definitely one of the highlights, if not the greatest highlight, for most women that I know, have known, and that will know. They look forward to that white long train walking down that long aisle with their family and friends watching. And if the truth be told, that, if not, is probably the most moment that they're going to be the center of attention, other than when they're actually born. Would you at least agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Awesome. I like hearing that. Now, here's the thing. Now that I've put that in that image out there, I was speaking with someone else, and that's what gave me the idea for this conversation. As I was explaining, that being a moment, and if not the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments, particularly for women, my other colleague asked me, well, what do you think that is for a man? How do you think that, what is that moment for a man? And I was on the spot. I started scratching my head. I was scratching like a fiend. It's like, okay, because I could not answer, considering that I had put this image of a woman out there. So I immediately went down into my soul and I thought about what type of endorphins are produced for a man that compares to that moment as I know it for most of the women that I have known, know, and will probably ever know. And I have a response. I'm going to talk about my response, but I want to hear your response, whether it's the same for you or someone you know or what you know men to be. What moment can you say is compatible to that moment we believe most women experience for that march down that aisle and for that day?
For a man's perspective?
Yes, for a man in general. And it doesn't have to be you. It can be
that
you.
Level. Yeah, you mean something with the similar intensity and focus and ambition for a woman to stand there in anticipation of her groom coming, basically to sweep her off her feet, and they go down the marriage trail and live happily ever after.
Yes, that moment that bride is walking down that aisle with all of that attention. What is compatible for a man based on your perspective?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have.
And before you answer, it's okay. I can hit. What I can do, take your time. There's no hurry. I really don't want you to do. My other guest, as a process of elimination, he said something, and we ended up talking about something kind of sort of totally different. But I don't want you to rush on this because this is serious, and I already have mine in my pocket. But I want to discuss your perspective first, and then I'm going to come back with mine. And there's no hurry. Take your time. Whether it's for you, whether it's through someone you know, or what you know men or a man to be in general, what could and usually likely produces those same endorphins and that type of impact. Yeah. Take your time.
Now, typically we live in a male-dominated culture, so it has a certain chauvinism intermingled in it. However, it kind of cuts both ways, because while men think that that's the most revered day of every woman, the day that she is betrothed and married and things of that nature, but we assume that it's not that big a deal for men, because it's the bride's day, not necessarily the groom's day. But what most don't appreciate about men is that men are cerebral. They are, in many cases, in a lot of cases, and this might sound chauvinistic too, but I believe it's true to the extent that men are more focused in most cases, in general. And while she's walking down the aisle, he's thinking, will I be able to sustain this relationship?
If I had a sound effect, I'd put it in right there. Go ahead, though. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
But that's what I'm thinking, is that he's having these internal questions that are bombarding his mind as she's drawing closer to him, and that moment of commitment is just upon him. So in many cases, that man is going through such a internal experience or phenomenon that most people don't see with the naked eye, with the physical eye. But I was thinking about this just yesterday, that in context of love and marriage and things of that nature, that that love has become more westernized. And,
more what?
And culturalized.
More what? Did you say
westernized?
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, we superimpose Hollywood's version of what love is. We've got stories like Cinderella, we've got Snow White, and all of those things that kind of filtered and taught us what we should expect, our own Prince Charming and things of that nature. And so, but if you go back not too many generations, the whole concept of love and it was not as as we describe it here in the West. I get sweaty palms, or my heart rate begins to elevate, and goosebumps all over the place. And that's what I consider a westernized version of love. But when you go back in several generations back, it was never about those response to an emotional serious. You feel emotional, but you can't live off emotions.
Okay.
You can't build a family off emotion. And as a result, that's why I think that most men would probably, if they're thinking correctly, when that moment comes, that's just as much a laser focused moment in his life, just as much as it is hers. She might be thinking in terms of, now I got one I can love and show affection and, make a baby for, blah, blah, blah. And because men are more, logic driven, they're not necessarily emotionally driven. And so, although we do get emotional, all you got to do is check out the finals, basketball finals or NFL playoff. You see, we get emotional. But in general, we are more cerebral. That's why a man can go 4 hours inside of a fishing hole, standing there and catch nothing, and think he still had a good day. Because he didn't go there for the fish; he went there for his thoughts.
Okay, so you're saying that same scenario would be equivalent for a man? I want to make sure I'm hearing you. Is that what I'm hearing?
I believe so.
Ooh.
Because a man can say, he can almost hear that player door slamming in behind him. As the closer she gets, bam. No more running around.
I don't know if that's the same, though, in the sense that a woman is getting excited. Would a man be getting more nervous than excited? Which is why I'm saying it's kind of different.
Nervous and excitement are the same.
Okay.
As far as the emotional, they come from the same place.
Okay.
They ascribe different results, though.
Okay.
So emotionally speaking, they're same from that same endorphin area of the brain. It's hard to differentiate between the two.
All right, I appreciate that. I want to save time for my next part. For the next part of my. But now, what I want to do is now give you what I came up with.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to be a little, a more, purposeful than I was with my last guest. What I think generates that same level of endorphins and that same level of, excitement for a man is the day that he looks into the mirror of his soul, as well as, the physical mirror. But when he has a perspective of himself that he is, first of all, productive, and that he is also accepted and loved and cherished and honored and even respected. I put productive and respective first and last for a reason, with all those things in the middle. But when a man can find himself in a place, whether it's a day or a season in his life, or a moment when he's standing in the mirror, that he is productive, he can take care of himself, he can take care of his family, he can take care of people around him, he can take care of his village, so to speak. I think that day is the day that a man gets the most fulfillment out of any kind of emotion he can have. And as much as I agree with the actual event having a similar effect, I'm thinking of that level of endorphins, and I'm using word endorphins. I don't even know what it means. I know it's like a chemical that goes in through the brain and just pumps you up and gets you excited. But I'm saying, that level of acceptance and completion and accomplishment when a woman is now someone's wife, that is exciting based on what I've heard women say, and I know women to like, want, and appreciate and get excited about. I've never seen a woman and her friends get more excited about them or one of their friends actually getting married and they have something to do with it. So I hear what you said. I appreciate it and I respect it. But I'm thinking when a man can stand up and say, I can sustain all that comes with that, and he's in that mirror and he's in that place of where he's particularly financially. And I don't want to say finances, because notice I didn't say that in the beginning, and I don't mean to put it into the basis of what I'm saying. I'm just including it now because it includes, the productive part. I'm just going to say it now. When he's financially, secure, and, he's able to sustain himself in those things that he has taken responsibility of. I think that is the moment that's equivalent to the wedding day of a bride. Do you see what I'm saying different than what you said? Do you have the same response? Has your response changed since I painted that picture? Or are you sticking with, what you said in terms of the actual wedding day for the man? Is what I'm saying valid at all?
It resonates, because the most resonating aspect of what you spoke of is respect and productivity. I think, of course, men get excited about his ability to produce something. Much like when I used to do yard work before God put me on retirement. I like to mow the lawn in a particular fashion where it's almost a checkerboard design on the lawn. So when I'm done with that, I look at it, I say, I like that. That looks good. But I got to go and get my wife and say, baby, come look at this. You see what I did? You see what I did? Why? Because we like that affirmation. We like that confirmation.
Right.
And that adulation.
Right.
So I get a certain zeal from that as well. So I say it's kind of both sides, because we were talking about excitement versus nervous. I think that's what it was, right?
Right. Yes.
Right? Nervous versus excitement.
Yeah, that was that was the clean word that I can come up with. That was the cleanest word I could come up with.
Yeah, but again, for most men, again, productivity is high on their list, but because that's something they made of themselves. They took their hands, their head knowledge, and developed something that's useful and benefiting to not just himself but society at large.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. That resonated with me, and that was a good conversation. Two different types of dynamics, but pretty much the same foundation. So I appreciate that, and I still have time for the second part of the topic. And thank you again for coming on with me, and thank you for expressing yourself in that way and giving me your thoughts about that topic. So,
my pleasure.
The second part is this. I discovered, a part of, through my so-called, for lack of a better word, work, I discovered some things about myself that is a major part of who I am today. And I'm finding myself now looking for a certain type of peace when it comes to particularly conflict. So I'm just putting that out there. My live stream, if you listen to the introduction and you listen to the promo, it talks about listening, hearing, processing what you're hearing, processing what someone is saying, processing what's actually going on, filtering that through what's real, and then being okay with what you discover. So with that being said, I want to talk about the 3 things that I use as filters, and I want your opinion on whether or not those filters are even realistic to consider, particularly when resolving conflict. So the 3 things are universal principles, points of references or reference, and law. If there's not a conflict or disagreement of any kind, people don't need to consider those things as much. They're just kind of built in subconsciously. We're, interacting with those things anyway. But I'm talking about in the season and time of conflict, whether it's between 2 people, a group of people, or a nation of people. When you look at universal principles, points of reference, and law, I think you can solve, conflict. Sometimes the reason we don't solve conflict is not being okay with what we discover after those 3 processes. So before I explain to you and give you, my definition of what those are, do you have any questions at all? real quick. Oh,
No
don't
questions.
Okay,
I think
so
I'm tracking.
okay, so what I'm going to give you my definition of universal principles. You already know, but for the sake of documenting, universal principles are things that just cannot be changed. They're set in place. I can't do anything about it. You can't do about it. I don't care how much we cry and complain. We can't change what is considered set. So for lack of a better word, in stone. Point of reference is something that may not necessarily be a universal principle, but it is something that has been established amongst different societies. So if you're in a certain region or a certain part of the world, a country, or on the planet, there are certain things that is considered a norm. So although it may not be a principle, it is something that is a reasonable expectation amongst those that are considering that process. And the last but not least, of course, is the law. Laws are different in different states, cities, regions, and different geographical areas. So if there is a conflict and you filter your conflict through those three processes, me personally, I don't believe that there's any problem, I don't care who it's between, that cannot be resolved if they are filtered through those processes. Does that make sense? That there is always a solution to every problem. Do you agree with that?
There is always.
Okay.
There is always a solution.
Okay. So now
But the variable are those who are supposedly, vying for that solution.
Okay.
You see, because there's. It's okay to respond now. I don't want to.
Okay. No. What I want to say is, those filters that I just mentioned. If there is a conflict between anything and two people come together, I like what, one of my favorite books says, let's reason together. If two people are attempting to reason and they're considerate of the fact that, okay, we need a resolution, you may not like it. You may not even, you should be able to comprehend it at least. But those filters that I just mentioned, are they good, bad, or ugly filters to consider in times of conflict?
I would think that they are probably perfect, the ideal principles and laws and one other you mentioned. But
points of reference is meaning what is acceptable, reasonable expectation for for society, for a society.
Mm-hmm. For a particular outcome.
Right.
I agree with you on that, and particularly on principles, because I tend to live by principles, and because just like laws, they are transferable. They work in every environment, no matter where you go. Mm-hmm. So, but if there are two people in a fallout in a relationship and they find themselves in conflict, the one thing I've written in a book that has not yet to be published, but it's called 12 Things That Ruin Relationships. Mm-hmm. It's a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. Mm-hmm. And one of the points I put in is that you don't know how to fight fair. You don't fight. So arguing and fighting are two very different and distinct outcomes or intentions. So, such as, arguing leads to intelligent discussion, towards a logical conclusion.
Okay. This would be a moment right now, based on what you just said just now, this would be one of those moments I'd ask the audience to clap. This would be one of those moments where we could say, somebody say, y'all ain't saying nothing in here. This would be an amen moment. Just repeat that for me. Argument leads to what? An intelligent discussion? Is that what you said?
Yes, an intelligent discussion towards a logical conclusion.
Wow. Man, I know that ain't real deep, but to me it's deep and it's heavy and it's appropriate for right now. But go ahead, please continue.
Yeah, and conversely, fighting leads to broken things like vases and plates and windows, tires, things of that nature.
Hearts.
So the question is, it becomes a question of, do you want to win at any cost? If you just argue for the sake of being the winner, then you're going to be more destructive in your approach. But if you're winning where I get to win, as opposed to we get to win, we should always enter a disagreement with a certain unspoken rule in place. One of them is that we're looking for answers and not someone to blame. And so when we play the blame game, that's that process of making sure I win at any cost, no matter what it costs you, as long as I win.
Now, how does fighting fair or arguing fair, how does being fair come into play with that?
Well, a friend of mine used to say there's 4 rules to communication. Number 1, what you say. Number 2, how you say it. Number 3, how you look when you say it. And number 4, where you say it.
Okay.
Now, I suggest that all 4 of those have to be kind of checked off to make sure and ensure there would be, meaningful dialogue. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to speak at the top of my voice to try to argue my position. So we can have a conflict of interest in our views right now, and still have this same tone.
Right.
The same tenor that I'm not belittling you, or this era now. We're in this phase where everybody's conscious of shaming, body shaming, complexion shaming. Well, if I want to win by shaming you, then that's counterproductive and self-destructive to the relationship we're supposed to be engaged in.
Okay.
So that's my concept. As when it comes to conflict, we want to find an answer, not someone to blame.
I like that. On that note, how important is the truth in all of that discovery? Sometimes, you can win without the truth. How important is the truth, and does the truth matter when it comes to winning?
For me, the truth is everything, because everything outside of that is a fallacy and faulty at best. It may look prosperous for a moment, but it requires maintenance. It's like they say, tell the truth because it's easier.
Okay, so we've got
lie is high maintenance.
We've got 5.5 more minutes before we're done. I kind of want to just on the way out on that. When you talked about how you say something, how you look, those 4 things you went through. When the truth is present, can the truth be presented any kind of way? Somebody said, well, this person says the truth, I just don't like the way they said it. If the truth is the truth, yes or no, does it matter how it's presented?
I think so.
So your answer is yes.
I believe so. You can have the right answer and present it the wrong way, and no one will benefit from that.
Okay, I like that. So the truth can be the truth. It can just be maybe at the wrong time or the wrong way.
And that's the tragedy, because if you've got truth always leads to freedom and liberality.
All right, you
liberty.
Okay. But it's how you present
it at the altar of lies. Then
Wait, say that again.
You're going to end up at the truth.
What did you say
if
about?
You sacrifice the truth at the altar of lies. If you put truth up and just sacrifice it to lies, then that's going to be high maintenance. Now, and at some point, even it may not even be during your lifetime, but at some point, that lie will surface and truth will address it at that point.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
something just flew in my eye. And it's not tears, so I'm not getting emotional, I promise. But that was good. I like, and this is a good place to close. Regardless of how you cover, the truth, you just said it will always face, the truth will always face a lie, whether it's now or even after, your life. The truth always finds a way to surface. I have seen it myself in so many cases. So as much as I'd love to keep you, man, I've enjoyed this. I always make my guests promise, unless they're not hurting real bad at this time, that they'll promise to come back at another time, man. You promised to come back, and it wasn't so bad, was it?
No, pain-free.
Right. This was a pretty good discussion, and it made sense. And I believe, my guest, and I know I got something out of it. You said a lot of things that I wrote down and that I'm going to keep in my little hat. I like those 4 things, and I'm okay. And I believe my audience will say the same thing. This was a good dialogue, and we are so on time. If I hang up now, within the next 45 seconds, we will have honored both of our words.
Well, let me go on record as saying again how honored I am to be a part of this discussion, and look forward to doing it again.
You got it, man. Thank you so much. Love you, appreciate you, respect you, and we got to talk real soon, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, 10-4. Take care.
Take care.
Mighty Horn Music. Smooth jazz, top 40, R&B, inspirationals, and more. Live from the Hollywood Home Studio. Like, share, subscribe. And thanks for tuning in.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. When you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy. You anoint my head with oil, my cups run over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.